Picture a man who painted a dazzling dream of wealth, a dream so intoxicating that thousands handed over their life savings, believing they'd struck gold. This is the electrifying, gut-wrenching story of Charles Ponzi, the mastermind behind one of history's most audacious financial scams. Boardroom Secrets pulls back the curtain on a tale of ambition, deception, and devastation, a scheme so infamous it bears his name. From a nobody to a millionaire, Ponzi's empire was built on lies, luring the hopeful into a trap that would ruin lives and echo through history. Buckle up for a wild ride through a world of greed, glamour, and betrayal that still haunts the financial world today. Born in Italy in 1882, Charles Ponzi grew up in a family that had once known prestige but had fallen on hard times. His father, a diligent postman, worked tirelessly. Yet young, Charles was haunted by stories of his family's past. Wealthy merchants, powerful officials, a legacy of grandeur now lost. The sting of this decline fueled a fire in him, a burning resentment that he, too, wasn't born into luxury. Why should he toil in obscurity when his ancestors had lived like kings? This obsession with reclaiming greatness would drive him to desperate, dangerous lengths. As a young man, Ponzi inherited a modest sum after his father's death. His mother hoped he'd use it to attend a prestigious university, to build a stable future. But Charles had other plans. He squandered the money on designer clothes, lavish dinners, and nights at the opera, chasing a fantasy of high society. He mingled with wealthy friends, pretending to be one of them, but the cash ran dry, and so did the illusion. Broke and uneducated, Ponzi refused his uncle's offer of a steady office job, his pride too great to accept ordinary work. He set his sights on America, the land of opportunity, convinced it held the key to his fortune. In 1903, he arrived in Boston on the SS Vancouver, carrying little more than shame for disappointing his mother and a relentless hunger for wealth. But America wasn't the golden ticket he'd imagined. With no connections or skills, Ponzi scraped by with menial jobs he once scorned. Waiter, dishwasher, factory worker, insurance salesman, sewing machine repairman. Each job ended in failure, either from boredom or small-scale scams that got him fired. He drifted, homeless at times, sleeping in parks, a far cry from the opulent life he craved. Yet, even when he earned a little money, he blew it on late-night parties, clinging to memories of his fleeting extravagance. In 1907, Ponzi fled to Montreal, Canada, chasing a fresh start. He landed a job at Banco Zerossi, a bank serving Italian immigrants. At first, it seemed like a lifeline, but the bank's owner, Zerossi, was a crook, running a scheme that paid old investors with new investors' money, offering a dazzling 6% interest rate, double the norm. Ponzi watched, fascinated, as Zerossi's trickery drew crowds. It was a masterclass in deception, planting the seeds for Ponzi's own scheme. But when authorities began investigating Banco Zerossi in 1908, Ponzi grabbed a suitcase of cash and bolted to Mexico, abandoning his colleagues to face the fallout. His escape was short-lived. Desperate for funds, he forged a check for $423.51, a reckless mistake that landed him in a Canadian prison for 2 years. Released in 1910, Ponzi returned to the U.S., undeterred. He smuggled 5 undocumented Italian immigrants, hoping to profit from their labor, but was caught again, earning another 2 years in a Georgia federal prison. Each stint behind bars only sharpened his resolve. By 1918, broke and desperate, he took a clerical job at J.P. Poole Company in Boston, where he'd first arrived years earlier. Life seemed to stabilize. He worked hard, earned promotions, and married Rose Necco, a kind 21-year-old who adored him. But Ponzi's heart wasn't in domestic bliss. He burned with ambition, desperate to shower Rose with luxuries his meager salary couldn't afford. Within 6 months, he quit to join his father-in-law's struggling fruit business, but it collapsed. His own import-export venture failed next, crippled by inexperience and a lack of connections. Every defeat pushed him closer to the edge, until a bold, reckless idea took shape. Ponzi's latest venture was a trade magazine called The Trader's Guide, meant to attract advertisers and cut his marketing costs. He dreamed big, 100,000 free copies, doubling with each issue, with ad revenue soaring to $80,000 against $35,000 in mailing costs. Confident, he rented a larger office, hired staff, and pitched to investors and businesses. But reality was brutal. No one cared about his obscure magazine, and banks rejected his loan requests. One bank president even threatened to close Ponzi's account rather than fund him. Forced to downsize, he let go of staff and sublet the office, but his hunger for wealth burned brighter than ever. Then, in August 1919, a letter from Spain changed everything. The letter, responding to Ponzi's outreach for the Trader's Guide, included an international reply coupon, IRC, a prepaid voucher exchangeable for postage in any Universal Postal Union country. Ponzi's mind raced. After World War I, Italy's lira was devalued, while the US dollar was strong. In theory, he could buy IRCs cheaply in Italy, redeem them for US stamps, and sell the stamps for a profit. Scaled up, millions of IRCs could yield millions in profits, legally. It was a brilliant arbitrage plan, or so it seemed. In January 1920, Ponzi launched the Securities Exchange Company to execute this vision. But the dream quickly unraveled. The profit margins were razor thin, eroded by shipping costs, and there weren't enough IRCs in circulation to sustain his grand ambitions. Most men would have quit, but Ponzi saw opportunity in the ashes. If the legitimate plan wouldn't work, he'd fake it and build an empire on lies. Thus began the Ponzi scheme, a deception so cunning it would define his legacy. Drawing on Banco Zerossi's tactics, Ponzi promised investors a staggering 50% return in 45 days or 100% in 90 days, claiming his global network of agents traded IRCs at massive scale. In reality, he invested nothing. He pocketed most of the money, using a fraction to pay early investors, creating the illusion of success. The first 18 investors, mostly neighbors, were thrilled with their quick payouts, reinvesting and spreading the word. By mid-1920, Ponzi's office was flooded with thousands, from factory workers to housewives, all dreaming of riches. His scheme raked in $250,000 a day, equivalent to millions today. The Boston Post hailed him as a financial genius, and Ponzi lived the high life: a mansion, luxury cars, gold watches, diamond rings, and lavish trips. He was the king of Boston, untouchable, or so he thought. But cracks were forming. Ponzi's promises were too good to be true, and savvy investors stayed away, sensing the absurdity. He targeted the naive, exploiting their greed and trust. When pressed for details, he dodged, citing trade secrets to fend off competitors. Rumors of fraud swirled, but early payouts and a defamation lawsuit against a skeptical analyst kept doubts at bay. Then, the Boston Post, once his cheerleader, turned on him. In July 1920, Clarence Barron, a financial expert and Wall Street Journal director, exposed the truth. Ponzi's scheme required 160 million IRCs to function, but only 27,000 existed worldwide. The math didn't add up. A Boston Post expose accused Ponzi of fraud, sparking a federal investigation. In a desperate bid to save face, Ponzi halted new investments and hired William McMasters as a spokesperson. But McMasters, an honest man, saw through the lies. With access to Ponzi's records, he uncovered damning evidence and handed it to the Boston Post, earning a Pulitzer Prize for his expose. The house of cards collapsed. Banks failed, thousands lost their savings, and Ponzi faced 86 counts of mail fraud. He pleaded guilty to one charge, receiving a 5-year sentence, a slap on the wrist for defrauding millions. Released after 3.5 years, he didn't repent. Instead, he launched a new scam in Florida, selling worthless swampland with promises of 200% returns in 60 days. Caught again, he faced more prison time. Fleeing to Italy, he was arrested in New Orleans, his pleas to President Coolidge and Mussolini ignored. Ponzi's final years were a stark contrast to his fleeting glory. Deported to Italy, abandoned by Rose, who divorced him, he lived in poverty, haunted by memories of his empire. He died in 1949 in a Rio de Janeiro charity hospital, buried in a pauper's grave. His story is a chilling lesson in greed and deception, a cautionary tale that resonates today. Ponzi didn't invent the scheme. Others, like William Miller in 1899 or Adele Spitzer in the 1870s, used similar tricks, but he perfected it, giving it his name. His legacy warns us, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Boardroom Secrets leaves you with this haunting truth. Even the brightest dreams can hide the darkest lies.